Now that we have a bit of an overview of how the navigation within ArchiCAD works, I briefly want to touch on the more overall project setup that we have to do with each of the project, but some of them that are within the software itself, so you don't have to change these sort of things every single time. And the first one that's especially important when you're just about to start with ArchiCAD and you've never really worked with it, is to go to ArchiCAD and then Project Preferences, and there's the second menu, Dimensions. Briefly open that and have a look in what kind of dimensions that you are actually drawing. This is really, really important, and it really depends on the country where you got your software license from. I have downloaded mine from New Zealand, so yours will probably be in that standard working environment that's provided by your local ArchiCAD distributor. Now, when we click on that, or if it's already selected, here on the bottom you can see the different kind of measurements and what kind of units that they are using. If you are in the US, you might be using inches and foot and all that. If you are in a metric country, it might actually depend. So here in New Zealand, architects are drawing in millimeters. Where I grew up and where I studied, we actually use centimeters. So because I'm going through that, I'm going to use ArchiCAD for myself, and I'm much more comfortable using centimeters. So you can just change that, and then the profile, it will create a new profile for you. For some odd reason, I've been playing around with that before, and I can't really delete these weird things that it has created for me. Normally, it'll probably pop up as custom. That's one of the things that ArchiCAD does a lot in these type of customization preferences, whether that's drawing tools or anything that you can kind of set up for yourself. It creates a custom header, and then you can just click on Store As and rename it. So I'm just gonna call it European Interface. Okay, and it will create that interface for me here. These sort of things, very often, not with that one particularly, but very often you can actually export these sort of things and import them again if you are to work in a different workstation, or if you would like to share your profile with some of your colleagues or friends as well. So that is all set up. We'll quickly go to next as well, having a look here. There are some changes that we want to make here as well. The length units, I'm going to set that to centimeters. Decimals behind the comma, 0.1, so 1 decimal, that's plenty accurate for me. Perfectly fine. Area units are set to square meters. That's all good. I think we need a little bit more precision in here. We can always change that if that's not suitable. Cubic meter for the volumetric units, that's fine. And then also the angle units are set to decimal degrees. You could also switch those to radians, degrees, minutes and seconds if you do prefer that, but I think within architecture we are fine with using decimal degrees, so that's all good. You can flick through that menu. There's some really elaborate settings that you can make in all these sub-menus about the way how ArchiCAD is measuring surfaces and areas. These are quite specific, and they might really depend on the building code that is present in the countries where you are working in as well. You can probably leave them all as is. Looking all good in here, we'll just leave it, that's all good. Pressing OK, and these settings are now applied. They will stay that way, unless you change them, they will stay that way for all the projects that you're opening, so you don't have to worry about these sort of things anymore. Another thing that is important when you go to ArchiCAD Project Preferences, and then down here there's a header called Project Location. Just click on that one. You can actually name your project. I put in Test Project. You can just go and edit and change it, And there's actually heaps of other information that you can put in here as well. One of the benefits of having these kind of information in one central place is that if anything changes, let's assume you'll input your site address and it might change because the site might not be ready and the council might actually assign you a different address number or anything. You only have to change these sort of things once within that window, and on all your layouts or anywhere else where you would use that address, you can use an auto text. Rather than typing the address, you can link it to that information that you have inputted here. So that's really, really helpful for these more like administrative information that might be important. You can see there's heaps and heaps of stuff in here. I would say as a student, you'll probably don't need that much information. Just name it. That's perfectly fine. Okay. And then down here, that one is really important if you are planning on doing any kind of like a sun study or anything that's very location specific. You want to choose the proper location of your building, of your site, and you can actually click on that little globe icon and it will pop up. Again, because I have a New Zealand license, it will automatically choose Auckland as the location because that's the most likely one. But of course you can look up any presets in here, just press OK, or if your specific location is not available, you can always search for the coordinates and copy paste them in here. As you can see, we are in the southern hemisphere, eastern, yeah, it propagates all that information as well. You can also input your altitude. I don't have a specific project at the moment, but let's just assume we are 20 meters above sea level. That is perfectly fine. And as we have seen before, or in the last video, I must say, ArchiCAD by default assumes that north is pointing upwards. That's how we orient the buildings. I never really change anything about that. I've gotten very much used to how that setup is. So press OK. All that information is in here.